Hello, everyone. This is the breaking news of Changemaker series that I'm doing for the fall. And the first aspect of it is the financial side, because I know people, maybe they've been displaced in their environment, their work environment, and they're starting to have this big dream that maybe they can finally follow or at least explore. And Sandra Simmons comes from the corporate world. We'll let her tell more about her background, but she has had her own business as an entrepreneur for over 30 years. She's going to touch on how to address starting your own business and the baby steps, but she also has a proprietary software that will help you with your cash flow management. And she loves starting out with new businesses. So I'm going to turn the platform over to Sandra Simmons and let her tell us, and I'll jump in with some questions because she knows she helps me with my cash flow. And I've had two startup businesses. So I'm going to turn it over to Sandra and let her start with her own experiences and how her cash flow management proprietary software can help you with your startup. Sandra, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. It's good to be with you again, Valerie. And yes, I love working with startup businesses. I well remember when I was one. I had spent 22 years on the corporate side and finally broke free of the six-figure income handcuffs for various reasons. One of which was I was traveling 90% of my time and I wanted to be able to stay home and sleep in my own bed at night. And I didn't particularly care for the ethics of the top level management in the company. And I didn't feel like I wanted to flow power to that group of people because they didn't have my values and they had low ethics. So yeah, in 1994, I decided that I would start my own business. And I was doing accounting and tax preparation. And at the same time, because of some of the experiences I'd had in the last company that I worked for, who I saw go bankrupt, I had learned about cash flow management because I wanted to understand why and how that behemoth company, multi-billion dollar company, had managed to go bankrupt when they had all the money in the world. And so my research project led me to the fact that they were operating on nothing, not even accounting probably, but they certainly needed to be operating on cash flow management because that's when the business owners are in control of the financial destiny of the company. So I was always teaching my accounting clients how to run their businesses on cash flow management. And that is, to me, a critical first step, especially for new businesses who are starting out when they don't have any ingrained bad money habits yet. And it's easy for them to grab hold of the very simple but very powerful tactics and strategies in cash flow management so they can be in control of their own destiny. And that cash flow management has served me. I used it in my own company. I use it every week. Every week.
Plus, your program is the Cash Flow Mojo is in 30 different countries now, probably 50 different countries. But that's which to me signifies how simple it is and how results oriented it is also. Now, for people who are dreaming about starting a business, what do you think their biggest fears are, why they won't take that step? Or can you suggest to people some red flags and some green flags?
Yeah, I think that it's important, first of all, they have a business idea of something that they want to do, and they really need to acid test that business idea. And what I mean by that is they need to go out and talk to people and find out, is this something that they would buy? How often would they buy it? How much do they think is a fair price to spend for it? And different aspects of why they would want it, what benefit they feel like they would get out of having whatever it is. It can be a product, it can be a service, but just to get some idea of how successful it would be. Because if you have an idea of something that nobody's going to want, or that technology or just progress in general is going to make obsolete in a year, then it might not be a great business idea. But with a few tweaks or bundling it with something else, it can
Yes.
turn into a wonderful idea.
Yes.
So acid testing an idea first before you jump in with both feet and spend a whole lot of money to
Mhm.
develop the thing, I think is really important.
And I think for anyone who's thinking about starting a business or they're already a startup, the overhead really needs to be low. I learned the hard way because as you know, I had 40 acres and 3 houses in New York, and I had a bed and breakfast. While the cash flow was there, the expenses were incredible, and I never even thought how crazy the taxes would be in New York. And while I could make it, I also worked full time in the wine industry, and that my overhead was probably really 14,000 a month, and rentals paid for that in the inn, and my own career. But I think one thing to talk about is that's a red flag. Really look at what your expense is going to be starting up, and don't have high overhead. And that would that come out in the cash flow mojo if they use that?
Yeah, running, let's back up a step and say, okay, so I believe that any company, startup to seasoned company, should be running their business on cash flow management. Most people have never even heard of that. They
Mm-hmm.
have heard of accounting. But what I got to tell you, what accounting is it's a system that produces historical documents for the purposes of filing tax returns. It tells you how much came in and where you spent it. And those numbers go on a particular corporate tax return or your personal tax return. And what it can't do is it can't give you a roadmap or guideposts and tell you how to do better in the future. That's the job of cash flow management and planning. Cash flow management and planning is figuring out, first of all, your budget. And let's talk about the budget next. Figuring out your budget, because there's one important number your business needs to know. And if you don't know that number, I guarantee you're going to go bankrupt. The other thing is cash flow management puts you in control of the income, the profits, where you spend your money, and how fast you spend it. And it actually gives you that roadmap and those guideposts and keeps you from overspending and keeps guiding you down the path to achieve not only business stability so that you can stay in business, but to achieve all your long-term financial goals. And it will truly, if you use it like it's intended to be used, it will successfully get you all the way down to the misty end of the road that you're looking at and can't see yet, called your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's one of the things that you taught me was the cost of goods sold, which I had never practiced at the end. And the other point that I like that you taught me is, and it's funny because I was doing this a little bit at the end, but how to put, because sales tax are massive in New York also, but how to put that money aside, because I charge sales tax on every end. So when I would budget my money, I would just put that, let's just say it's $18 on every room. I would just
Yeah.
make sure that $18 by the end of the week, however many rooms I had, went into the sales tax. And it was just constant, because then of course you had other taxes that you had to take care of in New York also. But I think that's really something important that's about the cash flow management software, is that it teaches you that, because that is part of cost of goods sold, which I never thought about.
Yeah, and that is part of doing your budget. The first step in cash flow management and planning is to work out a realistic budget. Now, what do I mean by realistic? It includes your cost of goods sold. And what cost of goods sold is the things that you buy because of the industry you're in
Mm-hmm.
that no other business would buy. For example, a veterinarian, they buy flea and tick and heartworm medications. A bakery, a dry cleaner, a carpet cleaner, or some consultant is never going to buy that stuff. That's not a cost of goods sold item for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to come up with a list of cost of goods sold items for your industry that you're paying for. And that goes in the budget. Then there's the debt. You have to pay off your debt, and that goes in the budget. And then there's all of your regular office expenses that every business pays, like advertising,
Right,
rent,
right,
utilities,
right,
that type of thing.
right.
And
Insurance.
then finally, to ensure your success, there's the 4 buckets of cash,
Mm-hmm.
savings accounts, and I call them buckets of cash all the time. And you have to contribute to them in order to make sure that you have a firm financial foundation underneath your company and you can successfully get to retirement. And the first bucket of cash is for emergencies. Now, my definition of a financial emergency is a predictable expense that you didn't plan to pay for ahead of time and put the money aside for. The second one is for business expansion. So you can decide how and when you're going to expand, how much is that going to cost, and start setting little bits aside every week so that by the time you're ready to pull the trigger on that expansion plan, you've got the cash to pay for it. Even if it's as simple as hiring your first virtual assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Know that that person is going to have to work for a couple of months to really get in the groove and be contributing enough that that person is allowing you to increase your income because you have more time or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
So you set aside little bits of money in that expansion bucket to pay for their first 2 months of labor when
Mm-hmm.
they're not really going to be helping you bring in any more money.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Make it simple. The third bucket is for paying your taxes
Mm-hmm.
and for legal assistance when you need it. And every business will. You're going to have to review a contract. You're going
Right.
to have them write a letter,
Mm-hmm.
something. You're going to pay for some legal expenses at some point, even if it's filing a copyright or a trademark
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's
logo.
expensive. Yeah.
It
Mm-hmm.
is. It's expensive. And the fourth bucket is for your retirement. And if you don't put money in there, nobody else is going to do it for you. So it's ultra important.
Right.
The other thing I would say about the budget is the regular expenses that every business pays. It must include your salary
Mm-hmm.
and it must be an adequate figure to cover all of your household bills because your business is going to be supporting your household. So you add all of that stuff up and you divide by 52 weeks to get a weekly income planning target.
Mm-hmm.
And what that income planning target is how much money you have to bring in every week to do better than break even. And if you don't know that number and you're targeting to a number that's too low,
Mm-hmm.
you're eventually going to go broke.
Right.
So, for example, if your business needs 5,000 and you think it only needs 3,300,
Right.
and so you're targeting to bring in 3,300 a week, how fast are you going to go broke losing that $1,700 a
And I
week?
think when you do something like this, because I did now because we sat down a couple of months ago. I think when you do something like this, it will also steer your decision making when it comes to your business because you want to price accordingly once you look at all those expenses. And one of the concepts that you brought up, which is kind of becoming a trend now, is bundling. For instance, as a podcast marketing services, I don't like editing videos. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to bundle that. I have found someone that's really good and trustworthy and affordable, and that's going to be an option. And I think when you're designing your business, maybe you don't have to have, as you said, the virtual assistant right off, but you should plan for it eventually, your expansion that you're talking about. So I think that's a really good idea when people are deciding on what kind of business to have. You know, John Limbacher was talking about this yesterday about the virtual assistants and how his program can put them out of business. But I thought what was interesting was that how popular virtual assistants are and how we do have to train them. And he mentioned this, we have to train them the first 2 months. So I think that's an important part of your expansion because expansion, for instance, for me to sign up for his program, it was an unexpected expense, but it's not expensive, but it was a small unexpected expense. And even something like $50 when you're a startup business, you have to have this. And if you say, well, no, I'm going to wait, when really it could triple your income in your business. So I agree with you that expansion doesn't have to be you're doing a new wing on your residence to have an office. It can be something small like a virtual assistant or with a new application software. So I think what you're saying will help people when they're dreaming of their own business to do the finances first.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the tactics of cash flow management is allocating where you're going to spend your money. And if you're right now making less than what your income planning target is, then you have to look at cutting expenses. And the rule is you never cut an expense that will harm the production of income.
Mhm.
So marketing and advertising is mandatory. You never cut back on marketing and advertising unless it's not working for you, and then you figure out why and
Right.
spend it somewhere else in marketing. But things like shop your insurances every 2 years. You
Mhm.
can get the same plan for a lot less money if you
Mhm.
shop and you really shop hard. And meals out, that's a
Oh,
discretionary
yes,
expense,
I know.
not a mandatory expense. So you cut where it won't harm the production of your income.
Mhm.
You always add if it's going to add to the production of your income. So your example's great. Maybe they feel like, oh, I better hang on to that $50. But, if they feel like they really
Yes.
need that, whatever it is,
Mhm. Mhm.
to bring in more income,
Mhm.
then spend the money and give it a shot.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at the expansion because it doesn't have to be big. Then the other aspect is what you teach us with your software is how nothing like this is taught in schools. It's more of the accounting, and I think that's important. And I'm not being derogatory when I talk about people with MBAs, but a lot of the MBAs are so stuck in the practical or maybe the illogical process of starting a business rather than using your concept to begin that path. I know when I was planning for the inn, I knew what I needed to charge for the rooms, to have the right kind of cash flow. I didn't though have the taxes. Thank goodness there was enough money because I was expensive back then, but I
Right.
I did not plan for the taxes. And I think that's what's important about, because I really think this is the time for people to start looking at starting their own business. And I know you had said in another conversation we had, Sandra, that for people who are still employed, and I know millions are, but if you have that dream to start a new business, keep your job as long as you can and start putting money aside for your new business.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a concept of you're actually setting money aside for your expansion as an individual. And
Mm-hmm.
that expansion is into being able to fully control your financial destiny. You're no longer going to be an employee,
Mm-hmm.
but you're going to have all the risks, the liability, and the responsibility of being a business owner. Um, and it's a big step, but if you
Yes,
do
it
it carefully and judiciously with your eyes wide open,
is.
with no, impossible dream concepts,
Mm-hmm.
then you're more willing to make better decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk a bit about making decisions because people can get caught up in a number of different things. And the thing that I like to tell my clients is, look, you have a brain in your head, and that brain is a computer, and its purpose is to solve problems for you. So when you're struggling with something, you have to ask better questions so you get better answers from your computer that's sitting up here.
It's
And
true.
here's an example. If you ask, why can't I lose weight? The computer is going to go to work and manufacture all of the justifications and excuses that you have put in there about why you can't lose weight. Well, I can't afford organic food. I have to eat the junk food and I can't do this and I can't do that.
Mm,
No, why can't I is the wrong question. The
yes.
question you want to ask is, how can I lose
Yes.
weight?
Yes.
Then your computer up here is going to start giving you ideas and
Mm-hmm.
solutions of what you
Mm-hmm.
can do to lose weight. You use that same concept in business. Why can't I make enough money to reach my income planning target this week? Well, you're going to get all these reasons why you can't do that because you like to sleep in, because you have to stop at Starbucks and spend an hour on your computer drinking a latte.
Yeah.
Ask instead, how can I make that income planning target?
Mm.
And then you're going to be looking at what you can do to actually bring in that income. And that's really important.
I think in the ideas that come to you when you finally reprogram your mind, because it is a mindset. Can't should not be
A
in our
mindset.
vocabulary. I totally agree with you on that. And I think when people start to reprogram and say, how can I increase my income, or how can I start putting money aside for that new business? The ideas may not come as an explosion, but sometimes they are an epiphany. So get a journal, keep those ideas. I have a couple of journals. It's lethal, but one is for Alignable and one is for us making presentations. And when I get these big ideas or I get these little ideas, and John Limbacher says the same thing. He goes, when you're brainstorming, for instance, the buying trigger he talks about, just keep writing and writing and writing. Keep a notebook that every time an idea pops in your mind, you write that down. And it's the same thing when you're starting a new business or starting that idea for a business. Keep a notebook, because you won't remember. Say your target market, your target is to start within 6 months to a year. It's important that you have all those ideas down so you come back and you can look at them also. Your brain needs it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it also requires you setting a goal. And if you don't know how to properly set a goal, you'll never make it. And setting a goal is very simple if you use this formula. I want to do X by Y because of Z. I
Perfect.
want to lose 20 pounds by December because I'm going to a wedding and I want to fit in that dress. I want to start my own business in 6 months because I want to be in control of my financial destiny. It's got to have a reason why.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're never going to get there. And it's
Yes.
got to have a firm date. Otherwise, you
Yes.
can't put your own feet to the fire.
That's right. It has to have a firm date, because, and the other thing is your imagination takes over there, and your imagination will actually go to work for you and meet those goals. It's not so much you really have to know how, but you have to start imagining and you have to have the vision. And that's why I'm so driven on people starting their own business, because we all have the will and we have the way. Once we let our imagination help us out with this interesting road. Now I'm going to have to say goodbye, but I just want to, before we leave, just mention a little bit more about Cash Flow Mojo. Do you want to mention anything about the affiliate program?
No, because I'm 73 years old and I'm looking at retirement now.
Okay.
My cash flow management software, I launched it in 2006 and it's in 34 countries worldwide.
Right.
It has served thousands of business owners. I have used it to pull people back from bankruptcy, turn businesses around, gotten them out of debt. It is a very simple but powerful software program, and it works like magic. That's why I called it Mojo. That
Right.
means
So I'm
magic.
just going to make sure that I put this in the resources, though, so people can look at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I do have, I made a decision that even though I wanted to retire, what I would like to do is keep the software running because I want every business owner to learn how to use it. But I want to fade into the background and actually go travel with my husband.
Good.
So instead of just trying to sell it or license it to somebody or just shut it down and walk away, which I could do financially, I decided to start an affiliate program. So other
Right.
coaches, accountants,
Yeah.
CPAs, anybody who wants to be able to teach their clients about cash flow management can use it as a tool, just like I have for the past 35 years, to help their clients, and they can get more billable hours.
Yes.
And every coach needs more billable hours.
Yes.
So yeah,
Oh,
you can
good.
put a link to
You
that.
explained exactly what I wanted to explain, because I want people to know about this. You can buy it in the middle of the night. Sandra doesn't have to be around.
That's right. And all the training's built in. So
Yes.
you can learn
Yes.
how to use it without me holding your hand.
Yes. So I will make sure that when the podcast is produced, that if the listeners will just go in the podcast details, it'll have all kinds of information for you to sign up, and Sandra will wake up and have a sale so she can be off sailing.
Yes,
All right, Sandra.
absolutely.
So thank you so much for your time. And this will be coming out, in my famous little clips, so people get lots of information for the next month and a half.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. And I'll
Oh,
enjoy watching your other guests as well. I always do.
great. Thank you so much, Sandra, for your time.
You're welcome.